Good morning, my name is J.B. Avance and I greet you from Calgary, Canada at the site of Penwell's Oil Sands and Heavy Oil Technologies Conference. Today we have the silver sponsor, Ingrain, and the President and CEO, Mr. Enrique Tono, here to visit about some of the technologies that their company brings to the table as far as oil sands. Enrique, tell me first about your company, because you're very new.
Yes, we're a brand new company. We've been around since August of 2007, so we're about 2 weeks away from our first anniversary, actually. Yeah, looking forward to celebrating that. Our company, even though it's very new as a company, has been around as a research group for about 30 years now. We are basically, I like to think of it as a distillation of over 30 years of research at Stanford University in rock physics. We've been sponsored for over 30 companies for over 30 years now to do research at Stanford. And about 10 years ago, the chairman of the group that does rock physics research at Stanford called me up and said, Enrique, I think I figured out a way of finally being able to compute physical properties of rocks from their images without actually having to put them in a laboratory and measure them in a laboratory. And 10 years ago, this sounded like science fiction. And actually, I have to admit, sometimes it still does. But I was in Colombia at the time. I used to run a seismic acquisition and processing company in South America. And I flew up to Stanford to see him. And sure enough, he had something very, very solid in terms of the basic science foundation to this methodology. We tried to turn it into a business proposition, but over the last 10 years, we ran into several obstacles. The two most important ones were, one, the ability to actually image rocks with high enough resolution to be able to compute anything from them, and two, the ability to actually compute things. It turns out the computers, up until a couple of years ago, were just not powerful enough to be able to do this at a commercial level. The most basic, simple of our computations would take days and sometimes weeks on the supercomputers at Stanford. However, about less than 18 months ago, actually a little over a year ago, Amos and I revisited our business plans and our technologies, and we found that for some strange and fortunate coincidence, we had the ability to both image the rocks at a high enough resolution and also the ability to compute the physical properties in a very fast and efficient manner by outsourcing the actual computation to clusters, commercial clusters all over the world. So we revisited our business plan. We went out to look for venture capital, and sure enough, a few weeks later, we're up and running.
Wow.
So it's been a
very quick turnaround too.
Very quick turnaround.
Based on 30 years.
Based on 30 years,
right.
exactly.
So,
you can't discard that, of course.
You're based in Houston, Texas.
We're based in Houston right now.
Okay.
However, we are now starting operations in Brazil, in the Middle East. We're about to open another office in the U.S. in mid-continent, and we're looking forward to getting started in Calgary the next 3 or 4 months.
The one thing that Ingrain brings to the oil sands process more than any other company, what would you say the answer to that would be?
It's actually a very simple thing. It turns out that right now, to measure physical properties of rocks, the oil sands industry is facing a tremendous challenge, because oil sands are often grains of sands held together by bitumen.
Right.
So when you put them in traditional core type of laboratory equipment and start to flow something through it, the grains flow along with the bitumen. So what you get is a measurement that doesn't really mean anything. What we have been able to do is take frozen core, image it, and in its native state, be able to compute the properties, and then start to modify the actual fabric of the rock as it is being produced, and be able to show and compute how the properties of the rocks are being affected as steam floods in and as the bitumen is displaced.
And the time length on this process compared to what it was earlier? Ultrasonic almost, imagine, because of so much faster.
It's orders of magnitude. It turns out that if you're doing special core analysis, things like relative permeability and things like that, in the traditional core type facilities, you're looking at months turnaround times if you're lucky. In our case, you're looking at a few days at the very most.
Days.
Yeah,
so you brought speed and accuracy into the oil sands business to be able to do the research.
We've also been able to bring a third dimension into it. Turns out that because we have a computer image of the rock, we can flow things through it in any direction we want. So we can actually measure anisotropy in the rocks also.
Wow.
So it also gives a third dimensionality to the measurements that didn't exist before. The other great thing actually that is not understood by many people is that because it is an experiment that you run on the computer, the rock is not being destroyed by the experiment, right? So you can run all kinds of different scenarios on your rock and better understand how the field is going to behave in the face of different completion methods.
This is amazing technology to an editor, and I know that in the oil sands business, this is going to be revolutionary for them. Brand new company with 30 years legacy, and we wish you well on your first birthday, and we look forward to working with you. We thank you for your sponsorship of the Oil Sands Show, and look forward to seeing you next year.
Are you going to blow a candle with us?
I would be delighted to, and well, happy birthday to Ingrain, absolutely. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
It's a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been a pleasure meeting you.
All right.